we did get some news on Monday morning about the way the expansion draft is going to look. We can touch on that in a second, but I think we need to start on what's actually happened on the ice. And the Ottawa Charge, as I referenced off the top, were chosen by Montreal. It's a fun storyline for us here in Ottawa. I think in Montreal, you'd go, yeah, we're first. We chose the fourth place team. If you were trying to defend it is what it is. But we're going to see Minnesota, who are the defending champs, play Ottawa in the Walter Cup final. And this was a race between two teams trying like hell right up to the very last minute of the regular season just to get in. I think that makes it exciting. I think upsets are fun. Would have loved one of those on Sunday, but that's in our past. Shrides, we're done talking about that. Mm-hmm. What do you make of? Well, before we break down the final, what did you think of the series that we saw between Ottawa and Montreal?
Yeah. So Ottawa finished third because they were technically tied with Minnesota, but they got the tiebreak. So they were They were ahead of Minnesota, which means they have home ice advantage, which is very nice.
Hey-o.
However, but to answer I thought, I'm not going to lie to you, going into the series, I was like, okay, Montreal is very good. They obviously finished first in the regular season. They took the season series 4-2 over Ottawa. Like, by and large, Montreal was the favorite. Ottawa was the underdog. But Ottawa did finish the season pretty hot, and Montreal finished the season a little slow. So I thought, okay, that might work in Ottawa's favor. I thought at the very least they would make it a 5-game series, and it would be interesting. I went to the first game in Montreal. I stayed up well past my bedtime to drive home. I would like credit for that. And I'm not going to lie, in that game, I was like, who is this Ottawa team? They were, from that game to the very end, they were the better team. Mm-hmm. Like, consistently the better team. Yes, they lost one game in the quadruple overtime. But at that point, flip a friggin' coin.
So what are the odds here, Shrides? You mentioned your notoriously early bedtime. Mm-hmm. If that's a 7 p.m. start,
fuck.
Do you make it?
So when I was in Montreal, it was a Thursday night, and I was like, just don't go to overtime. Right. Just don't go to if it goes to overtime. I was honestly looking at hotels. I'm like, because by the time the game ends,
yes,
and I do the post game press conference, like I'm not out of any arena until 10:30, 11 o'clock most nights. So I was like, if it goes that late, there is absolutely no way. If it goes to overtime, there's no way I'm staying here. And when the quadruple overtime game happened on that Sunday afternoon, I just kept saying to myself, thank God, this did not happen on the Thursday night, because I'd still be in Montreal, let's be honest. But yeah, even if I'm at home, like I'm because it's the playoffs, okay, it's a 7 p.m. game. If I'm watching at home, I am staying up for that.
Yeah.
But I'm not happy about it.
You're still recovering now.
I'm still tired. Like now, even on the Sunday afternoon, like I was joking with a few of my friends. I'm like, I had shit to do after that game, and like that game started at 2 and didn't end until almost. It was like 7:30 p.m. Like it was
I had 5. a nice little day planned. I wasn't going to do anything. At 2 o'clock was the P-Dub. At 4:30 or 4 o'clock was the Jays. That was going to be sweet. And then right into the Leaf game at 7:30. The Charge hadn't ended when the Leaf game started at 7:30 that night. You're like, what? And the P-Dub had another game lined up to start after Ottawa Montreal. They started 3 hours apart and finished 57 minutes apart. Like, that's insanity.
Yeah, there was talk at one point of like, which game's gonna finish first? It was wild. But even in that game, I thought, like, yeah, they were down 2-0, but they forced overtime, and I thought they looked like the better team. They were really good on the forecheck. They did a great job of keeping Montreal's chances to... Marie-Philippe Poulin and Laura Stacey were menaces on the ice the entire time, but most of the shots they got were ones that Gwyneth Phillips could see and therefore stop. Ottawa did a good job at limiting traffic in front of the net, and like they were the better team overall. I honest to God, did not see that coming.
Well, and by the end, you had them splitting up Poulin and Stacey, which I kind of get it. You're looking for some depth and like to spread it out a little bit, but now they both look different, or they'd sort of gotten inside Montreal's cage by the end of it, right? Like there was something about the way they were playing. Ottawa's bottom six appeared to have a little more energy, a little more I think everyone understands that Montreal probably had the higher end, top end talent, but throughout the lineup, which we see from time to time, the deeper team in this one prevailed. It was incredible to watch, and the job that Gabby Hughes did in that series was unbelievable, right? Like the classic checking line center. I'm going to embrace this role. This is what they're asking of me, to go against the best in the world for a week. Let's do it, and she killed it.
Yeah, Montreal's depth was certainly, or lack thereof, was certainly on full display here because they are one of the best offensive teams in the league, if not the best offensive team in the league. But they rely on that top line of MPP, Laura Stacey, and Jen Gardner for a lot.
Mm-hmm.
They're I think the game 4, sorry. No, game 3, sorry. Montreal had 26 shots, and 13 of them came from Laura Stacey and MPP alone. Like they had those two players had half of their shots.
Yeah.
You got to spread it out a bit because those are not easy players to limit. So
Sure.
I'm not saying it's easy, but like when you limit them, you kind of expose Montreal for not being able to get the job done below them. So that was definitely, there's a lot of an argument to be made that maybe they should have been split up earlier, or more often, for sure. But I just think overall Ottawa, like they were the team that we watched in the regular season for Ottawa versus the team that we watched in the playoffs are two very different teams, which I find very interesting.
Honestly, and there were times, and I'll admit to being one of them, like when they had that game before the World Championship break against New York, where they had that horrible third period. I'm just like, there's something not quite right about this group, and I don't know whether it's the mix or it's the coach or the strategy or there's just something that doesn't feel quite right. And they come out of World Championships, they play great, they end up getting in, and even that wasn't easy. It's overtime in the last regular season game of the year, and now all of a sudden you're playing for a championship. It's been a bit of a roller coaster. It's been a wild ride.
Yeah, absolutely. And, full credit to the entire team. But, you look at Gwyneth Phillips in particular, who stepped in late in the season.
You mean Gwyneth Phillips, you might say?
Oh, there it is.
Hey. I'm sorry, everybody. Yeah, exactly.
She stepped in late in the season after Mashmeyer went down.
Yeah.
Did something very similar in the World Championship gold medal game, and she won 6 of her last 9 games, and then has been like unstoppable in the playoffs.
Any chance she's Rookie of the Year ahead of Sarah Fillier?
Because the voting is based on regular season, no. And I say that because I vote in the PWHL awards, and I had to submit my votes before the playoffs started.
Yes.
So we wouldn't have been able, even if I know in some cases, you vote on the regular season, you're told not to factor in the playoffs, but we didn't even have the option to factor in the playoffs because they hadn't happened yet. I think she gets a few votes.
Sure.
Because I'll tell you, I think she was second on my ballot.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I can say that yet, but whatever. It'll probably it's out there now. The voting's already happened. But because it was based on regular season, no. But I think she'll get some votes. I think she'll probably be a close second. She's been incredibly impressive.
I think Ottawa's goaltending situation will come up again in a moment. Honestly.
I mean, that's fine.
But before we get there, we do have a championship series to play. It is the defending champs in Minnesota against Ottawa. What do you think of the matchup? What can you tell us about Minnesota that maybe we're not super familiar with? I'll be honest. I very much focus in on Ottawa. In other moments, I'll watch Montreal or Toronto. It's not that different for me than other sports where the Canadian teams have my attention first, and I'm probably not as knowledgeable on the American teams as I should be. It's Minnesota, Ottawa. What do you think of the match? Oh, and Schreids, just forgive me because I've been rambling. I have a second beer now that we're through the stressful part of this, and I'm enjoying talking about championships. It's reasonably early on a holiday Monday. This is from Whippersnapper, the Blueberry Pancake, one of their spring spectaculars. It's a wheat beer, but it's got the maple syrup taste to it. It's the blueberry, obviously, tied in there. I'm looking forward to trying this while you tell us about this matchup.
That's a breakfast beer if I've ever heard one.
That's right.
Okay, so this matchup. So Minnesota, if you look at the season series, Ottawa and Minnesota split it 3-3. So very evenly matched. They literally tied in the regular season. Ottawa finished there just because of the tiebreak, but they are very evenly matched teams in terms of points. Where I think the matchup gets interesting, and this has been especially evident in the playoffs, is Minnesota, despite having two very good goalies who split the duties almost evenly in Nicole Hensley and Maddie Rooney, they have been getting not great goaltending, especially in these playoffs. It was average, slightly below average during the regular season. It's not been good at all in this postseason. But allowed an average of 3.5 goals per game. But the thing with Minnesota is they've scored 4.5 goals per game, an average of 4.5 goals per game in the playoffs. So they've just been outscoring their problems against a Toronto team that was also getting very below average goaltending.
I like that.
Goaling. It's a new term. I made it up now. Where I think this, and listen, because we're talking about an Ottawa team that, I'm not going to lie, first I've seen of them, and I've been watching them very closely all season. This playoff team has been very different, but because of what we know about Minnesota is that they're high scoring, but they're going to allow a lot of goals too. I'm interested to see how that's going to work going up against a team like Ottawa, because you've got Gwyneth Phillips in net who is playing lights out right now.
Yep.
So are you going to be able to outscore your problems when you've got a very hot goaltender right now? And Ottawa, not so much high on the high octane offense. They're more of a depth scoring situation. So will Ottawa have an easier time scoring because they're going up against some not great goaltending in Minnesota? I do think on paper this matchup favors Ottawa a little bit. But again, that being said, both of these teams are kind of wild cards because you genuinely never know where you're going to get. Case in point, the last time they played in the regular season, it was Ottawa's second last game of the season. They had an opportunity to clinch a playoff spot. All they had to do was not let Minnesota win in regulation, and that's exactly what ended up happening. So I don't know. On any given night with Ottawa, you sometimes don't know who you're going to get, and that's what makes me nervous about this Minnesota matchup. However, just based on the way these two teams have played, I think it's a matchup that could favor Ottawa, but it remains to be seen.
Right. Is there, we know the stars who play for each of these teams. Is there somebody, in your opinion, in Minnesota that right now us Ottawa fans don't know enough about, but that we are going to very rudely be introduced to here over the next week or two?
I'm trying to think who you wouldn't know. Like obviously we all know the Kendall Coyne Schofields of the world, the Taylor Heises of the world. Sophie Jakes on D is terrifying and lethal and one of the best, if not the best, defenseman in the league this year. She had 22 points in 25 games throughout the regular season. I think she's going to be deadly from the point. Michaela Cava, kind of similar, a little further down on their depth chart, but a very, very consistent goal scorer and a really, really good player. And Claire Thompson as well. So that's the thing with Minnesota is much like Ottawa, they do have that depth on offense that'll allow them to score from a few different places, and defense as well with Sophie Jakes. So that's the players you want to watch out for. An interesting angle that I think a lot of PWHL fans would be familiar with is Britta Curl. Yeah. If you've been to a PWHL game, you've heard her be booed. Yeah. Rightfully so. She's been associated with some pretty transphobic stuff online and therefore obviously not a huge fan favorite. And, fans love to see her get hit and they love to boo her when she's here. So I think the fans will be focused on that, which that's great. Keep that energy up. So that's going to be interesting. But yeah, those are some of the players that I'm certainly keeping my eye on.
Do we have a schedule? When does the series start?
We sure do. The series starts on Tuesday. Let's go. So we got Tuesday, May 20th, Thursday, May 22nd, Saturday, May 24th, Monday, May 26th, and then Game 5 if necessary, Wednesday, May 28th.
You'll be in the building here in Ottawa, I assume. With
I sure will.
Yeah.
I sure will.
This is exciting, honestly. The first Canadian team to be in it. That was a bummer last year to have it be two American teams playing for it. And, that's just how it goes sometimes. But now, we get a Canadian team in there playing the defending champs. I'm looking forward to this. Honestly, I was a little hard, especially through the first half of the season, on Brianne Jenner. I thought there was more in there. We all knew there was more in there, and for whatever reason, it wasn't coming out. That has come alive. Gwyneth Phillips has been a revelation. I think you and I talked earlier in the season about my thoughts on the trade that brought Jocelyn Larocque here. Look, everybody loves Joss Larocque, but it was a bit of a head scratcher at the time. But you're about to play for a championship. And so, it's sort of, I don't know if it undoes the criticism or undoes the questioning or whatever however you'd want to frame that. But all of a sudden, everything you did this year looks pretty good, and you're in a good spot here. So.
Yeah, it's that's the thing about this league is there's so much parity, and you sometimes never know what you're going to get. I will say Brianne Jenner's play has been fantastic throughout these playoffs. Like, she scores the first ever goal. She scored the goal to tie it up in game 2 and send it to overtime. Like, that's what you want out of your captain. Sure. Right? You want them to be the player who scores those big goals.
I would love a captain who does that, yes.
Yeah. So she's been a monster in these playoffs, and I think it's that's what you expect from captain material. So she's shown herself that she's definitely the captain material here.